Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Hundreds of applicants received land plots from the government's Land for the Landless program. The second edition of Women and Girls ICT Forum takes place at Napa in an attempt to make job opportunities and career information more available. And the Public Procurement and Disposal of Property Act 2014 read for a second time in the Upper House. Thank you for joining us. The Land for the Landless program carried out its second public draw for persons applying for residential plots. Some 500 successful applicants were pulled from a clear glass jar before a live televised audience.
Over 500 applicants in the Land for the Landless program got a little closer to making their home ownership dreams come true, as their numbers were pulled in a second public draw for residential plots. The event took place at the National Academy for Performing Arts Center, San Fernando, and saw applicants drawn from a shortlist of two categories, General Random and Public Servants. Minister of Land and Marine Resources, Line Minister for the LSA, Jairam Simangal, described the event as testament of government's commitment to providing home ownership to citizens.
Today, in the presence of hundreds, we are going to draw in the good old-fashioned way and select another 500 applicants who will be invited for further verification and assessment and processing to receive their lots. I want to remind all that this program is called the Land for the Landless, which means that one of the main criteria for qualification is that you must not own property or land in your name.
Also on hand for the second national televised live draw was Carolyn Sipasad Bachan, MP for San Fernando West and Minister of Public Administration. She expressed her elation in her constituents coming closer to home ownership.
What this program does is that it literally builds on the skills and abilities of our people. The land is the first step, the home the second step. It is the basis of families, communities, and eventually peace and prosperity. It is the basic unit of a society of values, ideas, and ideals. I am elated that people are getting a chance to own a piece of land, a piece of our country, which they can call their own and on which they can build their own futures.
Under the program, families with incomes less than $3,000 or less will be provided with up to $30,000 towards the construction of a concrete foundation for their home. Minister Simangal explained the support they will receive upon being selected.
We have also made arrangement with TTMF, who will be funding this program via their funding of mortgages. Let me advise all successful applicants to take advantage of our support unit. Our dedicated housing support center under the Land Settlement Agency is providing the impetus for the construction of affordable homes. The Housing Support Center provide technical assistance and guidance to beneficiaries and services such as standardized house plans at minimal cost, architect to help families plan their dream home.
The live process saw the applications being pulled from a transparent glass jar and was monitored by auditing firm Ernst & Young. While the LSA formal operations commenced in 1999, the Land for the Landless program began in 2012 and has processed some 48,000 applications. Kimberam Calawan, News 4.
Meanwhile, ex-Caroni workers' dreams were realized as a total of 72 agricultural leases were issued to beneficiaries and former employees of Caroni 1975 Limited in the constituencies of Princestown and Tabaquite. Minister of Land and Marine Resources Jairam Simangal was on hand at both ceremonies to distribute to the land titles to the beneficiaries.
It was a twofold ceremony for the distribution of land titles of ex-Caroni workers. 54 leases were distributed to recipients in Princestown and 18 leases distributed to beneficiaries in Tabaquite. Land and Marine Resources Minister Jairam Simangal, who delivered remarks at both distribution ceremonies, says it's a red-letter day in the history of ex-Caroni workers who assembled for the delivery of goods and services that the People's Partnership government had promised them in its 2010 manifesto.
Today we have distributed just over 4,500 of these leases. And over the next few months, we will be distributing another 1,000, and we hope to complete the entire exercise before May 2015.
Minister Simangal told the workers of both constituencies that their wait was over and the People's Partnership fulfilled its promise to distribute the lands.
Your government is about distributing service to people and bringing the service to people where they are. And this is why we are here this morning. We could have held this ceremony as we are accustomed with in central Chaguanas, South San Fernando. But I've decided that this delivery belongs to the people where they are. And this is why we are here this morning, to bring the delivery to you in your hometown.
The minister warned ex-Caroni workers against selling their long-awaited residential and agricultural lots.
This is agriculture land that you all are receiving. It's 2 acres of agriculture land. To make use of the land, don't go and sell it in your first opportunity. Land is the only thing that don't spoil and don't depreciate in value. I have never seen land depreciate in my entire life. It is this piece of land that you can plant. If you are not interested in planting vegetables, you can seek to plant long-term crop. Plant 2 breadfruit tree, 2 châtaigne tree, 2 grapefruit tree, 2 mango. So the next generation, the younger ones, can go into the fields and look what they are.
He also advised them to occupy the land immediately and not allow squatters to occupy it. He said the Land Settlement Agency would assist them with construction and they would have access to the 2% mortgage interest rate proposed by the Prime Minister.
One of the policies I want to look at in my ministry is that when we allocate land in the future, 10% of the land must go towards planting fruit trees. Because it not only creates an environmentally friendly country to live in, but it also lends fruits for our school feeding program. I had a discussion recently with the CEO of the school feeding program, and they would like to introduce a lot more local fruits into the food feeding program, but they're not finding it. You can't even find enough sapodilla to fill a standard 1 class, much less to feed the 70,000 children that they would like to.
Minister Simangal assured that by mid-2015, all ex-Caroni workers would receive their leases. He said to date, 7,406 leases have been distributed. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Dr. The Honorable Bohendranath Tiwari, Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development, led government's debate on the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Bill 2014 in the Senate, where the bill was read for a second time. Minister Tiwari, who reiterated that the bill is meant to address vexing issues of corruption in procurement practices, said amendments have been made to the bill, taking into consideration key issues raised through dialogue with the parties concerned.
The Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Bill 2014 was read in the Senate for a second time by Dr. The Honorable Bohendranath Tiwari, Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development. According to the Minister, the bill seeks to provide for public procurement and the disposal of public property in accordance with the principles of good governance, namely accountability, integrity, transparency, and value for money. Minister Tiwari said one of the main aims of the legislation is the establishment of the Office of Procurement Regulation, as such an institution does not exist.
This bill establishes a new institution looking specifically at corruption in procurement practices. Such an institution does not exist in this country today in this way, and therefore it introduces a new institution in the country.
Minister Tiwari said with this legislation, there will be no blame game, as well as the possibility of duplication of effort will be removed.
Oftentimes when allegations are made, there is confusion as to whose responsibility it is to attend to the matter and to investigate. Many agencies are called: the police, the DPP, Integrity Commission. Sometimes even external agencies are named as being the appropriate agency to address this matter. But this bill establishes an independent national agency whose primary responsibility it is to have oversight, to set rules, to investigate, and to enforce the terms and conditions aligned in this particular bill.
Though he stressed the loopholes were unlikely to be exploited in this piece of legislation, the Honourable Minister assured if any is found at this juncture, government will give its consideration.
What we have done is removed in this bill the biggest loopholes in the process of public procurement. Now, that does not mean to say that there will not be loopholes in this bill. And if they can be pointed out during the process, we will take them into account. And one knows that every piece of legislation that is made, it is normal that loopholes will be found by those who want to work around the intentions of the bill. But I do want to say that in this bill, it will be much harder to find loopholes.
Felicia Wilson-Moore, News 4.
The second edition of our Women and Girls in Information Communication Technology Forum took place at the National Academy for the Performing Arts. It is a conference that helps women and girls access training, job opportunities, and career information in the fast-growing information and communication sector.
Over 250 young women aged 12 to 17 years from throughout Trinidad and Tobago were present to dialogue with some of the nation's leading information and communications technology ICT female professionals and scientists on the various ways in which the discipline is influencing personal and professional development.
The theme for this year's commemoration of Girls in ICT Day is, and I quote, "Expand horizons, change attitudes," end of quote. As Minister of Science and Technology with responsibility for advancing the reach of these areas within the national landscape, I am committed to ensuring that we develop a cadre of professionals who are represented in these groundbreaking fields. Such a grouping must include women, as they will add value and bring their different, unique perspectives to the table.
Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. the Honorable Rupert Griffith, says while teenage girls now use computers at the internet at rates similar to boys, they are 5 times more likely to consider a technology-related career.
Such an occurrence, in my view, will not negate the critical role of boys and men, whose presence is also equally important. Rather, it will highlight the diversity premium, the need for all to make a contribution on equal terms, and so expand horizons and change attitudes, for without the involvement of significant segments of our population, there can be no meaningful or sustainable development.
He adds that the ministry is therefore working to attract more young women and girls into the ICT sector.
It is no small coincidence that the 21st century is being called the information age. Given that women and girls constitute approximately half of the countries and the world's population, I recognize the importance of women being accounted for and assuming a definitive role in every sector that is already impacting the way we live and work.
He says it's about encouraging them to expand their horizons and urging their teachers and parents to cast aside old-fashioned negative attitudes. The world is fully entrenched in the information age, and thus there will be no turning back. Our development and future depend therefore on no measure on the ability of citizens to participate meaningfully in the global knowledge society. It is for this reason that the government of Trinidad and Tobago identified ICTs as a key pillar of our country's sustainable development, says Ms. Joy Crease, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Science and Technology, during her feature address.
Despite high participation rates of females at the secondary and tertiary tiers of the education system, young women are underrepresented in science and technology. And we in the Ministry of Science and Technology wish to facilitate a reversal of this trend because we know unequivocally, and as our esteemed panelists will prove in just a short while from now, girls get ITC.
She adds that it is in this general context that the Ministry of Science and Technology is generally pleased to host this Women and Girls ICT Forum. At the forum, a variety of jobs in technology were showcased in both existing and emerging forms of ICTs. Also, a cadre of eminent female ICT professionals was highlighted for all nationals of Trinidad and Tobago as living examples of what girls and women can accomplish. The forum also recognized girls internationally in the Information and Communications Technology Day, which observes the progress made by girls being educated in technology-related careers and how ICT can be positively leveraged as a tool for personal and professional development. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. South Trinidad got the first taste of the action in the final of the Mackason Super 10 basketball tournament when Game 1 was contested between home team Petro Jazz and Valencia Heat. Wayne Cunningham has the details.
Center Dwayne Virgil won the battle of the big men when he scored a season-best 29 points and grabbed 8 rebounds, which helped the Valencia Heat to a 69-67 win against Petro Jazz in Game 1 of the best-of-7 Big Four finals at the Southern Indoor Sports Arena in Pleasantville, San Fernando on Wednesday night. Valencia Heat trailed at the halftime 33-32, but rallied to lead the third quarter 48-47. After 2 lead changes in the fourth, Valencia took a 64-62 lead with 3 minutes remaining and never looked back. Virgil was supported by forward Fabrice Fisher, who scored 16 points and grabbed 12 rebounds. For Jazz, who will travel to Maloney for Game 2 on Friday night, point guard Adrian Joseph scored 13 points, and center Steve McSween had 11 and 5 rebounds. Forward Akko Pascal was held to a season and playoff low of just 4 points. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Thank you very much, Wayne. We'll be back right after this. Cabinet ministers came out in their numbers to support the Couva Development and Cultural Organization as it presented an exhibition of Indian classical singing under the patronage of the Couva South Member for Parliament at the Rienzi Complex.
Indian classical music resonated from inside the Rienzi complex in Couva South, as numerous groups in the community shared with patrons a number of Indian classical songs. Utilizing instruments such as the dolhak, tabla and harmonium, the performers graced the stage, giving off their very best. Cabinet ministers who came out to support this event hailed it as a remarkable achievement. Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs Kevin Ramnarayan congratulated the singers and the organizers for putting together an event of such magnitude.
I also want to recognize the contribution made by the artists who are here tonight, who are really the heroes among us. And I want to thank you all for attending in what is, I am told, the largest crowd to ever attend a classical singing event in Trinidad and Tobago.
Then Housing Minister Rudal Munilal extended greetings on behalf of the People's Partnership and the Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa. He also commended the works of his colleague Rudy Indarasingh for spearheading this initiative in the Couva South community.
For carrying the baton, he is following in the footsteps of a very illustrious former Member of Parliament of Couva South, the Honourable Kelvin Ramnath, in ensuring that we propagate our culture, our grassroots culture, and our expressions.
Minister of Trade, Investment and Communications Vasant Bharath says this Indian exhibition of Indian classical singing is a celebration of Indian heritage. He noted that with Indian Arrival Day celebrations just a few weeks ahead, this can be seen as just one of the many festivities to mark the occasion.
I think if you look at the number of people who are in the background and spilling over into the car park, there are thousands and thousands of them who've come out here to enjoy themselves. And I wish them all well, and I wish the Indian community happy Indian Arrival Day.
Also weighing in on the event was Minister of Arts and Multiculturalism, Dr. the Honourable Lincoln Douglas, who said there should be more events like this in communities and, by extension, the country.
I wish in general that, as a nation, we could all experience these things, and share this kind of cultural experience with each other. And people will understand, that Trinidad is a place that is really a beautiful country filled with enormous cultural potential and enormous cultural capital.
He further stated that all citizens should have an opportunity to experience this kind of exhibition of ancestral roots and traditions. The exhibition of Indian classical singing by the Couva Development and Cultural Development was sponsored by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. Now remember, you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and feel free to visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/RTV. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.